Hey YouTube, Sean here, and welcome back to another edition of After the Movie at my house right now. I just got done, well, I kind of last night, but I was so tired to record. But I went ahead and I watched all four Beverly Hills Cop movies back to back to back. And then, of course, the newest film just came out, Beverly Hills Cop Axel F., the long-awaited fourth Beverly Hills Cop film, because the last movie came out 30 years ago, which is kind of crazy to think about. It's been that long of a gap between sequels, but we've seen this trend in recent years of long-awaited sequels. I mean, Blade Runner had a long gap between sequels, Tron Legacy, and of course Top Gun Maverick, which was a huge phenomenon just 2 years ago, got a sequel. And now we're here. Eddie Murphy is once again back as Detroit icon Axel Foley. That's right, I'm repping Detroit, you know, my neck of the woods. I actually, fun fact about this one, I was there when they were filming some of this movie back, I think it was 2022. I was actually downtown Detroit, and they were filming all around the area. I got some footage of it. I won't insert it into the video, but I recorded some stuff and took some pictures and all that of some of the sets when they were filming some of the stuff downtown, and they later utilized that stuff in the movie. But from what I saw, they were filming stuff looked like a little bit earlier on in the day, and then they were having night shoots in all the area. So the opening of the film definitely kind of replicates the original Beverly Hills Cop by, you know, blasting hiatus on and just kind of getting shots of the city and all that too. So yeah, so I guess before I get into this newest film, give some quick thoughts on the first three films, then this one, because I don't think I've ever really talked much about Beverly Hills Cop. But it's kind of funny because the movies are Beverly Hills Cop, but Axel Foley is a Detroit cop. So like it's like he's an iconic Detroit character alongside RoboCop and Action Jackson. I think about like Detroit, like all their iconic movie characters are just cops. Axel Foley and RoboCop. I mean, Action Jackson's pretty great too, but that's kind of a little bit lesser one. R.I.P. Carl Weathers. But yeah, so the first Beverly Hills Cop film, that's like the movie that really launched Eddie Murphy's career into basically like superstardom. I want to say, I mean, he had some other things, I think, around the same time. He had the 48 Hours, which was a success, and I think Trading Places came out before or after this one. But then he did Beverly Hills Cop, and then that's really what kind of launched him into like megastardom. Like he was doing stuff on SNL and all that. The first film, like it's kind of like lightning in a bottle, like the way they were kind of able to capture something unique and funny at the time. Murphy's great in it. Like a lot of his improv, he's very young, he's very quick-witted on his feet, and just the way he kind of BS's his way out of different situations. It's like he does the Eddie Murphy thing, and Eddie Murphy's at his best when he's R-rated and allowed to just kind of like use his fast talking mouth. And the first film utilizes that quite well. So first Beverly Hills Cop film, really solid, really enjoy that one. The supporting cast there is great. You got like Ronnie Cox, you got Judge Reinhold, and you know John Astin in there as well. And it's a good cast. It's a fun movie, and then you have other characters kind of sprinkled in as, you know, supporting bits as well. Second film, I don't think is quite as good as the first film. I think it's a better action movie because it's Tony Scott who directed that one, and of course he made some other great things like Top Gun and that. But I think the action is definitely better than it was in the first film. But the first film definitely had stronger comedic timing with it. Villains were never quite great in the first two films, I want to say, but the first film works. It was really kind of organic and just kind of fit the story and all that. Second film, it's a little more personal for, I mean, they're all kind of personal in a way with Axel and all this stuff going on in them. But the second film definitely had better action. It still has some funny bits to it. And, you know, you had the big trio there. You had, you know, Taggart, you had Rosewood, and you have Axel. Like those three together really have good on-screen chemistry. They all play off each other well. And, you know, a really solid, you know, second film. Don't really like it as much as the first, but I still think it's, you know, not half bad. And then you get years later, we have Beverly Hills Cop 3. So the first one's 1984, I believe. Second one's 87. And then 1994 was Beverly Hills Cop 3. This one was directed by John Landis. And it's really bizarre. I like rewatching all four movies. I don't think I ever watched all of three all the way through. I watched some of it and never did. So I was always kind of hesitant to kind of go through it because it has a strange, bizarre plot. They're basically at this amusement park for most of it. The opening, like, 10 minutes or so of the movie I actually quite liked because he had, like, kind of an intense shootout, and then he loses his lieutenant or his captain, the guy who's always kind of chewing his ass in the first two films. And, like, that actually worked quite well. You felt the seriousness. You felt the impact of it all. I kind of wish they leaned into making that one, based on the opening, a little bit more gritty. Axel is not really as quick-witted as he was in the first two films. You don't see Eddie Murphy using his mouth to kind of get him out of situations, which is... It felt like there wasn't really much passion in there from him. Taggart's not in that movie. I guess him and the actor who played him and Roddy Cox were off doing scheduling stuff. And even in this fourth movie that's just came out, we don't really find out what happened to Roddy Cox's character or the girl who was in the first movie that was his friend. She's been kind of MIA since the first movie. But yeah, the third film just kind of a bizarre plot about this amusement park. There's a few bits that I kind of liked in it, maybe like one or two gags. There's one where he's in this costume and he just pushes the kid in the water. The cynical side of me kind of got a chuckle out of that one. But I mean, there's a lot of production issues with that third one, and you could just feel that Axel or Murphy's just passion wasn't really into the role at that time. And maybe under different circumstances it could have worked, but the script wasn't really there. The comedic timing of it all just didn't really work, and Murphy just didn't really have the energy. Yeah, Axel's a little bit older and he can be a little bit more mature, but it just doesn't feel as much like Axel Foley as it does in the first movies. You can still have kind of that, like, quick-witted personality and kind of like utilizing his mouth and kind of having that Axel Foley bits where it just felt kind of missing in the third film. Whereas with this latest one, Beverly Hills Cop Axel F, like, this to me is like how I would imagine Axel Foley all these years later. This one, I don't know who was directed by, but Eddie Murphy is once again back as Axel Foley. Judge Reinhold is back as Billy Rosewood. John Astin is back as Taggart, who was absent in 3, but then became retired, and he's working again. I think Paul Reiser's back in there as Jeffrey, and Serge, who was in 1, 3, and this one is in it as well. I'm surprised he wasn't in 2, but, he just kind of makes a brief little appearance. But his role here makes a little bit of sense, because he's kind of an ally of Axel to kind of help him out of, like, some sort of situation. And some of the new cast members this time around, we have Kevin Bacon as this really slimy, corrupt police guy, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and then you have some actress who plays Eddie Murphy's daughter, or, Axel Foley's daughter within the film. And you also have a really bizarre cameo from Christopher McDonald, who I think is playing Shooter McGavin. Like, he's this irate golfer. They credit him in the credits as like golfer, but I'm like, that's clearly got to be Shooter McGavin. There's no other way it's not him. He didn't do the Pistols, but I'm just like, it's Christopher McDonald playing golf in a movie. It has to be Happy Gilmore, connection of some sorts. I like to imagine that because they're doing Happy Gilmore 2, it's that Adam Sandler said that he's working on that one with him coming back, that this has to be some sort of because it's going to Netflix with that one. And please be good. Like, I know Adam Sandler kind of half-asses a lot of movies sometimes. He can be really good when he wants to, but I hope Happy Gilmore 2 is actually a really solid sequel. I think he understands that movie is extremely beloved, and you can't really mess that one up, because that one is one of the most beloved sports comedies of all time. So, but yeah, really random cameo from him in the film. So going back to Beverly Hills Cop Axel F, it's set 40 years later. It's been 30 years since the last movie. Axel Foley is kind of estranged from his daughter, but he still is Axel. He still has kind of his quick-witted personality. Eddie Murphy is very funny in this one. It definitely feels like he has a lot more passion and enthusiasm for this one than he ever did for Beverly Hills Cop 3. I think this is definitely the best of the sequels, the best since the first movie. Maybe not as good, because there's a lot of things that we've kind of done before, but there's elements that I kind of like more. I think the action's done a little bit better. I thought it was very funny, and I am kind of disappointed this one went straight to streaming. I wouldn't have minded seeing it go to theaters. Yeah, there's still a little bit of the nostalgic, memorabilia callbacks, but a lot of that's kind of done in the beginning of the film that it kind of does more of its own thing as it kind of goes about throughout the movie. Kevin Bacon, I think, probably made for the best villain of the 4 films. Not to say the villains are amazing, but he knows exactly what kind of role he is. He's just this really slimy, like, corrupt police guy who's basically kind of getting out of different situations and framing other people and such. But the story this time, like I said, Axel is estranged from his daughter. Something happens to where he has to go to Beverly Hills once more. That's where his daughter's at. Some attorney defending somebody who is being accused of killing a cop, is framed for a murder of some sorts. Billy Rosewood is now off the police force because he was, kind of higher up in the last movie, but now he's like a private detective. Taggart is back, kind of like head of police area or whatever his role was. Joseph Gordon-Levitt's in this one as a cop who's also dated Foley's daughter at one point, and there's kind of this sort of relationship going on there. But what works about this film, once again, it's funny. This is Murphy doing his thing, and he is really on point this time around. It's really nice to see, like, this feels like Axel Foley, whereas Top Gun Maverick it does something similar with Top Gun Maverick, where yes, Maverick's a lot older, he has matured in some ways, but you still feel that good old-fashioned Maverick in him. And this one kind of does the same thing with Axel. Like, he's been through a lot, he has a lot more real world experience, but he still has that Axel Foley like charm and personality. There definitely are a lot of callbacks to the first film in this one. He goes back to the same hotel, but there is a funny gag and payoff where you think he's going to kind of repeat the same thing they did before, where he's just, then it comes to a point where he's like, you know what, fuck it, I'm just too tired, I don't feel like it, just book me a room. That was genuinely very funny, and there's some like interesting gags and some other things going on throughout the film that really did work. Like the beginning of the movie is set in Detroit, and I remember, like I said, this is where I went to the set when they were filming some of the stuff. It's, you know, like he gets reprimanded for, you know, doing his Axel thing, causing all sorts of damage. He's trying to stop some guys who were robbing stuff at a Red Wings game. But it also was set kind of in winter, too. I remember it being very cold, like when they were filming that. So I think it was like December 2022 or beginning of like 2023. So that was fun to see. I mean, it was pretty entertaining stuff. The jokes were definitely working. Axel's energy, mixing in, like, just kind of playing off everybody. Judge Reinhold is really good in this thing. He's not in it as much as you would expect. I kind of wish they could have gotten the trio together a little bit more. But even then, like, I think the stuff with his daughter works. You know, we've seen this estranged father-daughter relationship thing done in many other movies. But it's not, like, the way the actors kind of play off each other, there is likability there, and there is kind of understandable reason why she would be a little bit distant from her father. I also think that this movie basically kind of, like, ignores that unaired TV pilot, because I remember there being a pilot that was made for a Beverly Hills Cop TV show, and Eddie Murphy was in it. It was based and had his son, who's going to be played by Brandon T. Jackson. This is his only child in this thing, so they have wiped that thing from existence. That was, I still want to see that pilot. I don't know if it ever was released online or anything like that, but I would have liked to have seen that, just kind of a potential, like, what if the show actually got picked up. So, yeah, Eddie Murphy is on point this time around. That's what you come to see. It's funny. The action's pretty good for the most parts. There's a few bits that are callbacks to other films that don't quite work. There's one bit with Rosewood where he's just, like, kind of has the gag. I think it's, like, the first or second movie where he's like, you're all under arrest, after kind of, like, shooting everyone. I'm like, yeah, it felt a little bit forced, but Reinhold is actually really funny and clearly having a good time. You feel the camaraderie amongst the cast members when they're all kind of together. And there's also a few kind of iffy bits, too, where it's like Taggart is like, oh, are you corrupt now? I'm like, Axel and him, they've been buddies and been through so much. I just don't see it changing. But then again, this is the 2020s, and, you know, this is, you know, the modern era of Hollywood film. So there's usually some jaded, cynical version of all this kind of going on, where they'll take a character that's beloved and turn him on their heads because that's just what they like to do. I think like Luke Skywalker in Last Jedi, or even like Indiana Jones and all that really jaded, cynical stuff. But you don't really get that with this one. Axel is still Axel, just doing this thing, but, you know, his dedication to being a cop and being hyper-focused on stopping the bad guys, it's kind of pushed him a little bit estranged from, you know, his daughter. And we don't really see who his ex-wife is. I assume it might have been the character from Beverly Hills Cop 3, but I don't exactly know. Maybe because, like, his daughter, you said, was like 32, and that film happened in 1994. So he must have been married like 92 or something along the lines of that, but we just didn't really see it. So I'm not exactly, like, really sure, like, what's going on with that there. So maybe he had a daughter, maybe he didn't. I don't 100% know. But I think, like I said, the movie worked. The actors were funny. They played off each other well. Serge comes back for a brief little bit, and he's kind of funny there. I think Louis Guzman shows up for one scene. And, you know, like, you kind of expect it to kind of go in specific directions. I do think they kind of spoiled the ending, because, like, they showcased the scene of them all in the car with him and Taggart and Rosewood. And those scenes of the three of them together are all funny, but that was saved, like, basically for the end, and it's just like, you know, you could have saved, you didn't have to kind of give that away. I would have liked, I wish we could have gotten the three of them together a little bit more in this thing. But Murphy did say he's working on potentially doing a Beverly Hills Cop 5, and based on how well this one was handled, and they clearly threw a lot of money at it, I think it was pretty solid. If you liked, like I said, I genuinely did enjoy this thing. Is it like a Top Gun Maverick level sequel? No. But for somebody who just watched all four movies back to back, because it had been a few years since I'd seen the first two films, I'd forgot so much that kind of happened in two. But the first one always kind of stuck out with me. And three, like I said, that was just such a bizarre thing. This one I liked the most since the original. So it's good. Murphy's back in full force. And that, to me, was the most refreshing thing about it. Like, he clearly had passion for this. He was allowed to be very funny and just play to his strengths. But, you know, Axel, like, in this film, makes sense. So I think most people will probably come away enjoying this thing. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was a really solid sequel, and I wouldn't mind more, but just, keep the quality up. Don't half-ass it. Really kind of put the effort forth. And I kind of like there's one thing I would like to see, because all the other movies, like, they have Rosewood and all that there in Beverly Hills. I would like to see them come to Detroit. I know it's called Beverly Hills Cop, and he's got to find some excuse to be Beverly Hills, but you don't have to pigeonhole them in. Like, if it's a sequel, like, maybe have a scene in Beverly Hills where his friends kind of come to him. I know, like, that's kind of the appeal. He's Detroit cop going to Beverly Hills, but come on, you could change it up a little bit. Have the ending take place in Detroit, or have him out in Beverly Hills already to start the movie, and then he has to head back, and his friends kind of tag along with him or something. I just feel like I want to see Rosewood and all them in Detroit for once, because it's always Axel over there, and we never really get the other side of that. So I think that could have been fun to explore in a potential 5th movie. So yeah. All right, well, I've rambled on long enough. I genuinely liked Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. I think it's a solid sequel. It's the best since the first film. First film's still up here, but this one, I genuinely really did enjoy it. It's tough to recapture the magic of the first film, and it's tough to kind of live up to something like that. But as somebody who just watched all 4 back-to-back, this one stood out to me a lot more. It was funny, and it was refreshing to see, like, Eddie Murphy, like, doing his thing, but in a really convincing way. And by the way, the guy's in his 60s, and he looks pretty great for being in his 60s. Like, I mean, he's not a spring chicken anymore, but he still moves around. I mean, you compare him to see how he looks compared to, like, Reinhold and Taggart and Paul Reiser, Jeffrey from the other films. Like, that's something, like, he's aged remarkably well. So, yeah, that's all I have to say about this one. If you've seen Beverly Hills Cop Axel F, or if you've seen any other films in the series, let me know what you thought of it in the comment section down below. I'd be curious to kind of engage what other people are thinking about this movie, because I really enjoyed it. So, all right, well, that's all I have to say. As always, take care now. Bye-bye then, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace out.